Universal definitely has an intense commitment to preservation and restoration of its film library. The restoration of Jaws is a tremendous responsibility. In the case of Jaws, this is history.
Jaws, 1975. Steven Spielberg's thrilling masterpiece not only left audiences worldwide holding their breath in fear of the giant great white shark, but also forever changed the face of the film industry. As the first movie to break the $100 million box office record in the US and usher in the era of the summer blockbuster, Jaws became a global cultural phenomenon. Yet behind the on-screen glory lay a production filled with dangerous challenges, from incidents involving real sharks to life-threatening moments that nearly claimed the lives of the cast. Let's dive into 20 surprising, gripping, and at times terrifying behind-the-scenes secrets of this legendary film. 1. The shark attack on Alex Kintner was cut. Imagine sitting in a theatre still catching your breath from the opening scenes when, BAM! A bloody, violent shark attack flashes across the screen. This is exactly what happened during the test screening of Jaws. The original scene showed the mechanical shark, Bruce, lunging out, ripping apart Alex Kintner's yellow raft and dragging the boy underwater. Fake blood splattered everywhere, and graphic details of the body were so vividly depicted that audience members ran out to vomit. Steven Spielberg, with his keen sense of storytelling, realized that gore wasn't always the main course in a horror film. He immediately ordered the scene to be cut, keeping only the symbolic details: the yellow raft slowly sinking under the water and the horrified reactions of the beachgoers. The result? A bone-chillingly haunting scene that left a far deeper psychological impact without a single drop of blood on screen. 2. The mechanical shark, Bruce.
My studio and I stripped off years and years of grime. It was about getting down to the basic shape of the shark.
Bruce, the massive mechanical shark in Jaws, was supposed to be the brightest star of the film. But instead of delivering cinematic glory, it became a constant headache for the crew. Named after Spielberg's lawyer, Bruce was a technologically advanced machine for its time. However, the engineers had forgotten one critical factor: the corrosive nature of salt water. The moment Bruce hit the ocean, it started acting out. Its control mechanisms, corroded motors failed, and more often than not, the star sank to the bottom of the sea. Repairs took weeks, blowing up the budget and throwing the shooting schedule into chaos. Rather than lose his cool, Spielberg turned this disaster into an opportunity. He used John Williams's iconic music, point-of-view shark angles, and the characters' terrified reactions to evoke fear. The result? Shark appears on screen for only 4 minutes, but became one of the most terrifying villains in cinematic history. Ironically, Bruce's endless troubles helped Jaws transform into a legendary masterpiece of suspense and horror. 3. Real tension between Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss. If you thought the tense relationship between Quint and Hooper in Jaws was just great acting, think again. Robert Shaw, Quint and Richard Dreyfuss. Hooper genuinely disliked each other. And when we say disliked, we mean Shaw turned Dreyfuss into the target of every cruel joke on set. Shaw, a veteran actor with an intense method-acting approach, often ridiculed Dreyfuss, calling him a coward. On one occasion, Shaw even tossed a glass of whiskey into the ocean and dared Dreyfuss to jump in and retrieve it. Dreyfuss, younger and less experienced, felt immense pressure but managed to stay composed enough to finish his performance. Ironically, this real-life animosity added authenticity to the tension between their characters. The sharp exchanges and underlying hostility between Quint and Hooper felt more real than scripted, bringing an extra layer of depth to the film. 4. The Orca sank during filming.
Down memory lane, the boat was gone. And I called up the head of the back lot and I said, "What happened to the Orca?" He said, "Well, it was just rotting there, so we took an axe and..."
Filming on the ocean seemed like a great idea, on paper. But in practice, it quickly turned into a nightmare, especially when the Orca, the heart of the movie, unexpectedly sank in the middle of the Atlantic. The reason: strong waves overloaded equipment and the boat's less than ideal design. Chaos erupted as the Orca began to sink. Cinematographer Bill Butler shouted to save the actors first, then the expensive cameras. Valuable footage was at risk of being destroyed by seawater, but thanks to the crew's quick thinking, everything was preserved. 5. The opening scene with Chrissy Watkins. If you remember the horrifying scene where Chrissy Watkins is dragged underwater by the shark in the opening of Jaws, here's a fascinating fact. Susan Backlini's panicked reaction was entirely real. The crew used an underwater cable system operated by 5 team members pulling in opposite directions to create the effect of Chrissy being yanked around by the shark. The catch: Backlini wasn't told when or how hard she would be pulled. Every sudden jolt caught her completely off guard. Her terrified screams weren't acting. They were genuine cries of fear and pain. The cold water combined with the strong tugs left her bruised by the end of filming. But her sacrifice resulted in one of the most haunting opening scenes in cinema history, immediately setting the tone for the rest of the film. 6. The shark only appears for 4 minutes. Believe it or not, in the entire 2-hour runtime of Jaws, the giant shark, the central figure of the movie, appears on screen for only 4 minutes. Sounds crazy, right? But this wasn't the original plan. Spielberg had intended for the mechanical shark, Bruce, to feature prominently, showcasing its terrifying design. However, constant malfunctions and breakdowns left the crew with no choice but to minimize its appearances. So what did Spielberg do to save the film? He turned the shark's absence into an art form. Instead of showing the shark directly, he used underwater shots that mimicked the predator's point of view. John Williams' eerie, repetitive score, just 2 notes, became the shark's voice and warned the audience of its presence. The result? The dread of the shark was felt more than seen. The audience never knew where, when, or how it would strike, amplifying the suspense and making its eventual appearances even more terrifying. 7. The line: "You're going to need a bigger boat."
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Sometimes the best moments are unplanned. The iconic line, "You're going to need a bigger boat," is a perfect example. Surprisingly, Roy Scheider Chief Brody improvised this line on set. The moment happens when Brody first sees the massive shark surface next to the boat. Overwhelmed by shock and fear, Scheider naturally blurted out the line, and Spielberg decided to keep it in the final cut. Even more amusing, the line originated from an ongoing joke on set. The crew constantly complained about a lack of space resources or equipment, often saying, "We need a bigger boat." Scheider brought this quip into the scene, and the rest is history. 8. Spielberg almost quit the project. At just 28 years old, Steven Spielberg faced one of the toughest challenges of his career while making Jaws. The shoot stretched from the planned 55 days to an exhausting 159 days. The budget ballooned from $4 million to nearly $9 million. And the mechanical shark, Bruce, was a constant source of frustration. Add to that the mounting pressure from Universal Pictures, which threatened to shut down the project if Spielberg didn't deliver on time. Spielberg later admitted there were moments when he wanted to walk away, feeling like the film would ruin his career. But instead of giving up, he found creative ways to work around the problems. When Bruce failed, he used innovative storytelling techniques, including music, sound effects, and the actors' reactions to keep the tension high. Spielberg's perseverance paid off, not only saving Jaws, but also creating one of the most iconic films of all time and solidifying his reputation as one of Hollywood's greatest directors. 9. John Williams' iconic score. Can you believe just 2 simple notes could make your heart race? That's the genius of John Williams, whose Jaws score became one of the most recognizable in cinema history. The repeating E and F notes, gradually increasing in tempo, mimic the heartbeat of prey sensing an approaching predator. When Williams first played the theme on the piano for Spielberg, the director laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when Williams explained the simplicity embodied the primal nature of the shark, Spielberg was convinced. Williams took only a few hours to draft the theme, but he spent weeks perfecting the score. He created 47 variations to match the film's scenes, from frantic shark attacks to slow, menacing underwater approaches. Today, the Jaws theme isn't just a soundtrack, it's a cultural icon. The 2-note motif has become shorthand for danger, instantly recognizable in countless movies, TV shows, and parodies. 10. Real sharks were used for underwater scenes. When the mechanical shark Bruce kept breaking down, Spielberg turned to a more practical solution: real sharks. He hired Australian underwater filmmakers Ron and Valerie Taylor to capture footage of great white sharks off the coast of Australia. Using a miniature shark cage, the Taylors filmed real sharks in action. To make the sharks appear larger and more menacing, a stuntman was placed in the smaller cage, creating a forced perspective effect. One of the most iconic shots features a shark attacking the empty cage, a completely real moment. The authentic footage was seamlessly blended with studio scenes, making the film feel more realistic and intense. Spielberg even rewrote the script to let Hooper survive, inspired by the striking footage, instead of having him killed by the shark as originally planned. 11. The Alex Kintner scene and an unexpected reunion. Decades after Jaws premiered, an unexpected reunion occurred between the 2 actors who played mother and son in the movie. Jeffrey Voorhees, who portrayed Alex Kintner, the boy fatally attacked by the shark on the yellow raft, had transitioned into running a seafood restaurant in Martha's Vineyard, the filming location for much of Jaws. One day, Lee Fierro, the actress who played Alex's grieving mother, happened to dine at his restaurant. When Fierro looked at the menu, she noticed a dish called Alex Kintner Shark Sandwich, a playful nod to Voorhees' character in the film. She laughed and mentioned to the staff that she had played the boy's mother. Voorhees, overhearing this, came out of the kitchen and introduced himself as Alex. The emotional reunion between the 2 actors became a heartwarming moment as they reminisced about their time on set and the enduring legacy of Jaws. This real-life connection highlighted the film's lasting impact not just on audiences, but also on those who were part of its creation. 12. Quint's monologue about the USS Indianapolis.
Japanese submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief. He was coming back from the island of Tinian to Leyte and just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb.
One of the most chilling moments in Jaws is Quint's haunting monologue about the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. Delivered in the dimly lit cabin of the Orca, the speech not only reveals the character's traumatic past, but also adds to the film's tension before the climactic battle with the shark. What makes this scene even more powerful is that it's rooted in real history. The USS Indianapolis was a US Navy ship that was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine during World War II. Of the 200 sailors on board, around 900 initially survived the sinking. However, due to delays in rescue efforts, they were left stranded in shark-infested waters for 4 days. Hundreds of men were killed by sharks, and only 316 survived. Robert Shaw, who played Quint, rewrote much of the dialogue for the scene, collaborating with screenwriters Carl Gottlieb and John Milius. Shaw's performance was so gripping that it captivated audiences and cemented the scene as one of the most memorable in the film. Quint's story not only explained his vengeful obsession with sharks, but also added emotional depth and historical weight to the narrative. 13. Cultural impact, when Jaws made the world afraid of the ocean. After Jaws was released, it didn't just pack theatres, it also emptied beaches worldwide. The film triggered a global shark panic, with many people too scared to swim in the ocean. Even the sight of a harmless dolphin could send swimmers scrambling for safety. This widespread fear changed how people viewed the ocean and its inhabitants. Shark hunting increased dramatically, with thousands of sharks killed each year due to the fear the movie instilled. However, Jaws also sparked curiosity and interest in shark research and conservation. Scientists used the opportunity to educate the public, emphasizing that sharks are not mindless killers, but vital components of the marine ecosystem. On a broader scale, Jaws redefined the summer movie season. Before its release, summer was typically a time for light, smaller films. But Jaws proved that summer could be dominated by big-budget blockbusters, paving the way for films like Star Wars, Jurassic Park, and The Avengers. 14. A bold release strategy. How Jaws rewrote Hollywood's rules. Before Jaws, most movies were released gradually, starting in a few smaller theatres and expanding slowly. Universal Pictures, however, took a revolutionary approach by releasing Jaws simultaneously in over 450 theatres across North America. This bold strategy came with a massive marketing investment. Universal spent $1.8 million, an unheard-of amount at the time, on advertising. The Jaws trailer, which featured the shark lunging at a swimmer and John Williams' chilling score, aired repeatedly on television, building enormous anticipation. The gamble paid off. Jaws earned over $7 million in its first 3 days, breaking box office records and solidifying itself as the first true summer blockbuster. This approach changed the way Hollywood operated, establishing the wide release model as the industry standard for major films. 15. Record-breaking box office success. Jaws wasn't just a movie, it was a phenomenon. It became the first film in history to gross over $100 million in the US, a milestone no one had thought possible. By the end of its theatrical run, it had earned $260 million domestically and over $470 million worldwide. An astonishing achievement in the 1970s. This financial success was driven not only by its innovative release strategy, but also by its ability to tap into a primal human fear, the unknown lurking beneath the water. Combined with its suspenseful storytelling, unforgettable music, and groundbreaking marketing, Jaws captivated audiences and became a cultural touchstone. The film's success catapulted Steven Spielberg to stardom and laid the foundation for the modern blockbuster era, where movies became more than entertainment, they became global events. 16. The budget went out of control. Initially, the budget for Jaws was estimated at around $4 million, a fairly reasonable figure for the 1970s. However, this number quickly spiraled out of control due to a series of unforeseen incidents. First was the star of the film, the mechanical shark named Bruce, which constantly malfunctioned. No one had predicted that the ocean's salt water would corrode the machinery, disrupting the shooting schedule. Next was the unpredictable weather at sea, which frequently delayed offshore filming. Originally, the shooting schedule was planned for only 55 days, but in reality it ballooned to a staggering 159 days. Costs kept rising from $4 million to nearly $9 million, prompting Universal Pictures, the studio behind the project, to consider cancelling the film on several occasions. Steven Spielberg, and the production team had to work hard to convince the studio to keep going, arguing that Jaws was not just a movie, but a potential cinematic phenomenon. Indeed, Spielberg's persistence proved to be right. Despite exceeding the budget, Jaws grossed over $470 million worldwide, earning tens of times its production cost. Beyond that, the film became a cultural icon and a masterpiece in cinematic history. It is a clear testament that sometimes significant investments not only yield enormous profits, but also create timeless works of art. 17. The soundtrack was composed in a few hours. John Williams, the genius composer behind numerous classic film scores, created one of the most haunting soundtracks in cinematic history with just 2 musical notes. Yes, only 2 notes, E and F. This motif was repeated with increasing tempo, akin to the heartbeat of prey sensing the approach of a predator. When Williams first played the score on the piano for Steven Spielberg, the director burst out laughing. Spielberg thought it was a joke. However, Williams explained that the simplicity of the melody was the key to capturing the primal fear evoked by the shark, an understated predator that still struck terror into its prey. Though the main theme was sketched out in less than an afternoon, Williams spent weeks refining and orchestrating the music. He created 47 different versions of the score to match various scenes in the film. The intense, relentless sound, like an unending nightmare, kept audiences holding their breath every time they heard it. 18. Fans flocked to Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard, a small island off the coast of Massachusetts, is not only a popular tourist destination, but also a place deeply tied to the legacy of Jaws. Most of the film's scenes were shot here from Amity Beach, where the shark attacks occurred, to Edgartown Harbour, where the Orca set sail. After Jaws became a global phenomenon, Martha's Vineyard began attracting thousands of visitors annually, all eager to experience the world of the film. Fans often visit iconic filming locations, from the dock where Alex Kintner was attacked to the bar where the character Quint first appeared. What truly makes Martha's Vineyard special are the annual Jaws-themed events. One of the most remarkable activities is the outdoor screening of the film right on the water, where audiences sit on boats in the middle of the ocean to watch the classic movie. Imagine sitting on a small boat with the big screen showing a shark lurking beneath the water. It's both exciting and chilling, isn't it? 19. Oscar nominations and wins. Despite being a horror film, a genre often overlooked at major awards, Jaws proved it was not just entertainment, but also a masterful work of art. At the 48th Academy Awards, the film was nominated in 4 major categories: Best Picture, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, and Best Original Score. The results: Jaws won 3 out of the 4 categories. The Best Sound Award was given for the team's ability to create vivid soundscapes, from crashing waves to the terrified screams of victims. The Best Film Editing Award went to Verna Fields, who skillfully cut and assembled the scenes to create the film's suspenseful and intense rhythm. And of course, the Best Original Score Award went to John Williams, who turned 2 simple notes into a global icon. Although it did not win Best Picture, this award went to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jaws solidified its position as one of the most important films in cinematic history. 20. Far-reaching cultural impact. Jaws was not just a movie, but a global cultural phenomenon. After its release, the film changed how people perceived the ocean. Fear of sharks became so widespread that many people avoided swimming in the sea. In fact, the number of sharks hunted increased dramatically due to the obsession the film sparked. However, the opposite also occurred. This fear sparked curiosity, leading to increased research and conservation campaigns for sharks. Scientists began to educate the public that sharks were not cold-blooded killers, but an essential part of the ocean's ecosystem. Additionally, Jaws redefined the concept of the summer blockbuster. Before its summer was typically seen as a season for small light films. But Jaws demonstrated that action-packed thrilling films could dominate the summer, paving the way for blockbusters like Star Wars, Jurassic Park and The Avengers. Jaws was more than just a horror movie. It was a masterpiece that transformed Hollywood, setting a new standard for filmmaking and movie distribution. From a production fraught with challenges, Steven Spielberg and his team turned every obstacle into an opportunity for creativity, delivering a timeless work of art. And these are the surprising, terrifying, and fascinating secrets behind the making of Jaws, the film that changed the history of cinema. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more captivating stories. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.